Hello again and welcome to another 140k Mordian Glory video, and in today's episode I want to ask and attempt to answer one simple question. Why does Warhammer 40k seem to live and die on the competitive scene? You see, I've been playing this game for a long ass time, boys. Been playing it for 25 years, but competitively, and I'd say properly, I've been doing it for the last decade. And over all that time, I have seen 40k reach great heights of popularity and explode and just do really well. And I've also seen it come to the brink of destruction. And it seems to me that when the game is doing fantastically, it's when the tournament scene is alive and active and bubbling. And when the game starts to struggle is when people start souring on the competitive scene. People start seeing it as toxic or the game is unbalanced. And rather than going over to like the casual scene, just playing with their friends, people just seem to step away from the whole ecosystem. Everything just starts to fall apart a little bit. It starts to wither and die. And I want to talk to you today about why I think that is the case. My theory for why the competitive scene seems to be like a Harkonnen heart plug. When it's in, everything's all right. When you pull it out, blood everywhere, it starts to die. It's not a good time. Now, the first thing that I want to do is talk to you a little bit about what I've seen over the years, present some evidence to the court, give you some examples of when I've seen 40k do well and when I've seen it do badly. We'll start with 5th edition. Very fondly remembered by a lot of people. I know many people that have, when they've struggled with 40k, said, oh, I wish it was like 5th edition. Even I have said 5th edition was a bit of a golden era for me getting into the game. And it wasn't just for like nostalgia purposes. It seemed like there were tournaments popping off. It seemed like there was a game club in every place you went. Every town had a game store. It was awesome, right? And then we had 6th and 7th edition, which are widely considered to be the worst editions of 40k. The balance was completely out of whack. Everything was just bonkers. You had lists where you could take 10 riptides in a list, and each one of those riptides could fire 4 times. So you literally faced down the firepower of 40 riptides. It was just on another level. And as a result of the game being so utterly broken, just fundamentally cracked, it began to wither and die. And you had the competitive scene just started suffering massively. And what you saw there by the end of 7th edition, it was the same like 20-40 people turning up to an event. It was the same sad old fuckers, including me, just sat around playing the same matchups. And I kid you not, boys, by the end of 7th edition, which was the edition that almost killed the game, I saw many times, too many times to count, people rock up to a table. They knew each other. They'd shake hands away. Oh, hi mate, how you doing? Yeah, not seeing you. How are the kids? How's the wife? All because they just knew each other, and they'd literally look at the board, look at the matchup, and go, it's not a good one for you. This is it. Should we roll dice so who gets first turn? And they literally roll the dice, and whoever won would basically win the game. Because if you got first turn, you just blow people off the table. Because we didn't have all those like L-shaped ruins or anything like that, right? It was basically planet bowling ball, bit of narrative terrain, bit of cover. That was it. And so people would literally roll for first turn and go, yeah, there you go. Sometimes if there was a little bit in question, maybe they'd like deploy and play the first turn. But after the first player's turn, the game was pretty much decided. And like that was how bad 7th edition was for like balance, and that was how like screwed up the game was. And this was on the tournament scene. But what you were finding is when you were going on like forums and stuff, and people were like chatting away on like Daka Daka. Who remembers the Daka Daka back in the day, boys? Bit of Daka Daka, bit of the bolter chainsword, Warseer if you're an Eldar player, right? There's all these different forums that you would go on, and people would, even in like the hobbying and painting side, be like, oh yeah, I've bought this model, and the first comment would be like, yeah, great paint job, shame it's never going to see any time on the tabletop. And what was funny is the person that had like painted the model, like, yeah, I kind of just had it in my pile of shame, so I decided to buy it, but I'm not really buying anything new from Games Workshop for the moment. And that was what was happening in like 7th. And you had people that were like, just on every level, people were talking about like the balance of the game, and they were talking about how the game was broken, how the competitive scene was broken, how unbalanced everything was. And 7th edition almost killed 40k. Anyone that has been playing from around that time will tell you that by the end of 7th edition, it was bad. Alright? Casual scenes were dying. Game stores were closing down. The amount of game stores that I saw just close during that period of time was heartbreaking, man. It was awful. So it wasn't just the case that the competitive scene was struggling. It was that the rot was seeping into everywhere. And then 8th edition came along. And it was good. It was very, very good. 8th edition saved 40k. Saved Games Workshop. If 8th edition had not been a success, we wouldn't have 40k today. It's as simple as that. And what happened was GW just like totally just changed their attitude towards the game. They stopped saying that they were a model company, not a game company. They got rid of all of that shit, and they were like, look, they released Warhammer Community. Warhammer Community like wasn't a thing before 8th edition. And they started talking to the community, and people started getting hyped up, and they started addressing like elephants in the room and being like, look, the game's in balance. We know things have been broken for a long time. We want to fix stuff. And they did it. I mean, 8th edition wasn't perfect, but by and large, they did it. And for the first sort of year and a half, the first half of 8th edition, prior to, I'd say, Vigilus Defiant coming out, the game just massively took off. In that time alone, I went from being just a guard player, using myself as a bit of anecdotal evidence, I went from being just a guard player to have just my Mordians. I repainted my entire Mordian army because I was so hyped up. I wanted them looking beautiful on the table when I went to events. I bought my Steel Legion army. I bought my Gene Stealer Core army. I bought all of my Gene Stealers new in box from Games Workshop. Anyone that's listened to my recent videos will be like, Morning Glory buying new in box, what the hell, man? But that's because the vibe was good, man. 40k was doing well, and I wanted to take GSC to events. They were a hobbying project, but I wanted to take them to games, I wanted to take the tournaments, and I wanted people to see this Brotherhood of Nod army that I'd come up with. And I did the same with my Black Templars. I built my Black Tide, and I built my Pure Scion army, because I wanted to go to tournaments and for people to be like, oh man, 100 Black Templars, that's amazing. Oh man, Pure Scions, I've never seen that before. My hobbying and my painting was being fueled by the fact that I was going to tournaments. And because I was going to tournaments and I wanted to show off these wacky, crazy things that I could do and the things that I was building, it meant that as a whole, my whole hobby experience got better. Anyone that's been to a tournament, by the way, will tell you there's no better motivation than painting for an event. Things that have been sat on your painting desk for months will get painted the night before to a better standard than you realize you could do because you're just in the zone smashing it out, right? Tournaments are an amazing motivation for the game. But then we had the end of 8th edition. We had Marine Codex 2.0 come out, and it was super broken. Who remembers literally, statistically unkillable Iron Hand Dreadnoughts? Who remembers Games Workshop starting to release like separate little supplements again, squeezing all of the juice out of the players? Oh, you've got to buy Vigilus Defiant, then Vigilus Ablaze, then you've got to buy Psychic Awakening, and then you've got to buy each individual Marine Codex, like Ultramarine and Salamanders. Oh, you've not got any like special data sheets or anything. It doesn't actually matter, but we're going to make you buy a whole book for it. And when things started souring, when people started going, oh, I feel like competitive scene's a bit broken right now, doesn't feel fun, their perception of the game started to change. People started pulling back a little bit. The 9th edition came out, and 9th edition was good overall, but think of all the problems that we had with like Dark Elder at first and AdMech. But I feel like 9th edition kind of rode the initial wave of 8th edition's popularity, and sort of that momentum carried it forward a little bit. But then by the time we got to sort of the end of 9th edition, for not for balance reasons, because I would say that balance was really, really good by the end of 9th. What was interesting is the game had become a little bit stale. The competitive side of things had become a little bit stale. People had kind of like unlocked it, and I've spoken about how L-shaped ruins and stuff and just making things so cookie cutter have started to be a bit of a problem for 40k, but that's a topic for another day. But basically, for other reasons, by the end of 9th edition, competitive scene had begun to contract, and we had that same problem where I was going to tournaments and there'd be like no local people there. I was traveling all around the north of the UK. I was even traveling down, you know, to the Midlands, and traveling even. I went down south, boys. Whoa, I know, any northerner, we don't belong down there, boys. We don't belong. They don't even have They don't even sell chips and gravy and cheese, boys. They don't sell cheese, chips, and gravy. It's a dark place down south. Place where no man from the north belongs. But anyway. By the way, if you've not had cheese, chips, and gravy, oh my god, it's amazing. It's not poutine. Poutine is different. It's nice, similar, but it's different. Anyway, 9th edition started getting stale. It was the same 40 people turning up. You knew the matchups. I'm going to win this matchup. You're going to win that matchup. Rolling for first turn basically decided who was going to win the game. But in this case, we wanted to lose rolling for first turn. Everything was too unlocked at that point, right? And so you saw a general contraction. Tournament attendance sort of began to stagnate a little bit, and then it started to go down, and people were just like dropping from events. And so then 10th edition came out, and at first I would say the hype around 10th edition was really, really big. In fact, I was going to say 10th edition has been like a fast track. It's been a roller coaster. It has been a huge a microcosm, as it were, microclimate of this cycle. Because in 10th edition, the initial hype was just like, yes, it's popping up, baby. Everything was going really, really well. And people were hyped for new Tyranids. And people were beginning of 10th edition, I got myself a new Tyranid army. I got myself a new Orc army because I was just hyped for the games. I was like, yes, I'm excited. Things are going to feel refreshed. The tournament scene is going to be bubbling again. It's going to be bursting. The meta's going to be not going to be unlocked. It's going to be all free. Everyone's going to be able to just try out new things. And that initial excitement and creativeness really, I think, exploded the popularity of 10th edition. People were hyped for the game again. But unfortunately, there was a boogeyman. Fortunately, there was a dark cloud on the horizon. And it was the Eldar. And unfortunately, the hype train for 10th edition got derailed very quickly. Because people at this point were so plugged into the 40k verse. They were plugged into the metaverse, boys, all right? So because of the popularity and the mainstream factor, I would say that 40k has managed to cultivate. Everyone knows about it now. When South Park makes an episode about you, I've said this before, when South Park makes an episode about you, when Henry Cavill hooks off Netflix and The Witch to come over to your 40k Amazon program, you know that you're mainstream, right? And so as it's become more mainstream, what's happened is people have been able to sort of work the game out quicker. When there's a new release, it's kind of broken down inside of 48 hours. When a codex is released, 48 hours, boom, people know what it's about, whether it's good or bad. And that's crazy, right? That level of turnaround is insane, but there's so many people talking about it online. I guess I haven't been on Daka Daka in years and stuff, but I feel like a lot of it's like moved over to like competitive subreddits and stuff, and you know, and sort of Reddit's kind of become like the forum for a lot of communities and stuff. But you see it a lot on YouTube, and you see it a lot on like battle reports, and even like people that aren't overly competitive are like talking about like the balance of the game. Like I brought this unit in my army. I mean, think about like Tabletop Tactics, for example. I wouldn't say that they're overly competitive. They've been to a few tournaments, but I've not seen them go to any in a while, and it seems like they've been more focused on like cultivating their in-house experience. But even they talk about like how unbalanced the game can be, or how good the game can be, and how fun it can be, and how bad it can be. Everyone talks about it, even if you're casual, right? And so what happened is because there's this level of just like breaking the game down so quickly, distilling it, working it out, unlocking it, what happens is that I feel with 10th edition, we just went on this lightning fast journey. We just went through the cycle super quickly, and Eldar was so broken and so oppressive, and obviously there's been a balanced data slate now, so we're gonna have to see if they can be fixed, but they were so toxic that we kind of got to we kind of fast tracked it. And so you were noticing after 3 months of 10th edition being out, tournament attendance was down. It was stagnant. It didn't even take the full 3 years, boys. It took like 3 months. And that's why you saw GW like doing these like knee-jerk reactions. There's been, in 3 months of 10th edition being out, there have been 3 updates to the game. We've had one lot of points changes, and we've had changes to core rules. We've then had a big set of FAQs and erratas, which still changed fundamental rules, wasn't just clarifying stuff. And then we've had the recent balanced data slate. Not a month has gone by without GW like basically trying to nerf stuff or buff stuff or tweak the balance of the game. And a lot of people are saying it's changing too much, but again, topic for another time. We've talked about like, the treadmill and whatnot in previous ones of these sort of rambling videos that I do. But the point is that like Eldar was so broken and we'd fast tracked the cycle so much that GW recognized the problem and they've tried really hard to fix it. Because you saw people not turning up to tournaments. You saw tournament attendance down. You heard people talking about how like they tried to run an event and they couldn't even run it because not enough people signed up. And more people were just stepping away from the game. And just to, again, speaking from my perspective, and I'll say it again, I'll say it again and again and again. Let me know your perspective down in that comment section. Whether you agree or disagree with me, just let me know if what I'm saying it tracks with your own experience, or if you've not really been impacted by like the hobbying, by the competitive scene, right? But anyway, going back to my perception of it. My videos that I did talking about how like the competitive scene wasn't doing very well, how Eldar are broken, that kind of stuff, they've been doing really, really well recently because people have been talking about tournaments and everything. And what's interesting is people have been enjoying talking about like how everything's like busted and everything, but my like unit reviews and tactics kind of have they've dropped off a little bit. People were more interested in talking about what was like wrong than they were actually in like playing the game. See what I mean? And what's also interesting is my other game system content. I'm gonna say it, boys. Say the line, Mordian. Say the line. Bolt action. My bolt action content has been going from strength to strength. When I first used to release my bolt action videos, I'd get like 500 to 1,000 views, and in comparison to my like 40k videos where I'd get like 3,000 or so views, it was a lot less. Now I'm finding that my bolt action videos regularly break 1,500 to 2,000 views. And I've had more and more people in my community. I'm not just attracting bolt action people. I'm saying people in the Morning Glory community have been going, I've kind of been getting a bit sick of 40k a little bit. I'm kind of feeling a bit burned out from 40k. I'm just not that. I want something a bit different. So I thought I'd try a bit of bolt action. I mean, at this point, Warlord Games needs to give me some kind of like free t-shirt or something, because I must have converted, I would say, 2-3 dozen people over to bolt action. I'm that #1 salesman, man. Anyway, obviously I'm just taking the piss there, boys. But my point is that as the competitive scene started doing less well, and you saw less people going to tournaments, and tournament numbers starting to stagnate and then go down because of how broken and oppressive the balance of the game was seen, you saw that ripple out into other areas. And you saw more people who were like, I'm going to try other game systems. And you saw more people who were more interested in like talking and moaning about the state of the game than they were about playing the game. But with all of this said, the big question is why? Not why is 40k imbalanced. We know it's never going to balance. 26 factions, too many moving parts. The best we can strive for is good enough on the balance front, all right? The big question is why, when people step away from playing the game, do they not just go over to like playing with friends or just like hobbying? Why does that side of the 40k universe not seem to be enough to sustain 40k and sustain the ecosystem as a whole? Well, I have a theory, and I'm going to share it with you now. I call it the 40k arms race. Let me describe a scenario to you, and you tell me if it sounds familiar. You and a group of friends decide you're going to get back into 40k. Maybe you used to play as a kid, maybe you've heard about it online, maybe you play some video games. Whatever the reasoning, you decide you're going to dip your toe into the tabletop. You buy your first models, you get really excited, you build them, maybe you paint them, and you start playing some games with them. And at first it's good. It's just people rolling dice, having friends, beer and pretzels, all this kind of stuff. and your armies start to build and grow. And maybe there's a few imbalanced things you come across along the way, but everyone's kind of the same skill level. Everyone's kind of got the same awareness of what is good and what is bad. You're all learning. So you don't really mind if you notice something's not very good. It's like, oh, that wasn't very good. I'll try something different next time. I'll buy a different unit. You know, I'll experiment a little bit. And your armies get to the point where they're about, 2,000 points or so, and you've been playing regularly for a little bit, and someone in the group, maybe it's you, maybe it's a friend, decides that, you know what, we should go to a tournament. There's a local game store down the road. Let's go. They're running an RTT, a little 1-day, 3-day event. Let's just go. Maybe some of your friends go and some of them don't. Maybe let's say 1 or 2 people from the game group decide they're going to try out a tournament. That's where they've kind of got to. The people that are kind of, players that are sort of starting to emerge out of the chrysalis as being maybe the ones that are more focused on playing to win and they enjoy the playing side of it, right? Those people go to the tournament and they get absolutely smashed because they might have been a big fish in a little pond, but when they go to tournament scene, they just get crushed. Okay? But rather than that souring their entire experience for 40k, rather than that putting them off, they go, that's how tournaments do it. That's the actual level of 40k. And so what they do is they come back and using their tournament experience, they start buying different units, better units. They now have got a bit of a sense of the meta because they've been talking to people at the events. And so as they start integrating what they learned from the tournaments, they start power boosting their list because they start becoming more competitive because they've got the bug. And playing 40k competitively is addictive. Once you start, it's really hard to stop because there's something, maybe it's just part of the caveman brain. There's something about competition, right? It's why people love watching sports. They love watching one person win and one person lose. People like supporting the underdogs and everything, but sport is a huge, huge industry and it's people just watching people win and lose, right? So it's addictive. So they start getting more into it. Suddenly they're reading things online, they're following metas, they're talking about stuff in forums, they're watching YouTube videos. And those people that went to the event start getting further and further ahead of the people that didn't. And maybe some of those people that didn't go to the event come to the next one and they start getting better. And so eventually what happens is the gaming group starts being split into 2 groups. You've got the people that are going to the tournaments and playing the games competitively, and they're absolutely smashing the people in the gaming group, in the fun friend group, that are like, I'm not bothered about going to events. I'm not bothered, I just want to play. So what starts happening is the group that isn't going to the events starts getting a little bit upset because they feel like there's no point in them playing the game anymore because they just lose every single time. And for a while they may be sustained by the hobbying and painting stuff, but 40k is kind of a social thing. They use it to be able to hang out with friends and socialize. Humans are social creatures by and large. Not everyone, but by and large humans are social creatures. But the social aspect of it is starting to become unpalatable. And the competitive players, they don't realize it, but they're actually maybe their personalities are changing a little bit as well. They're becoming more focused on the win. I got to win at all costs, yes. They're not being horrible, but they've got the bug, right? And when they go to their tournaments, they want to play to win. When they come back into the friend group, they sometimes forget to switch it off. And they smashed the casual guy. And they smashed that guard guy who's just spent ages building up his Praetorian army, and he's even got some of the original metal models, and they're just smashing him every single time. And then the game group starts falling apart because you've got people that just want to go to the tournaments now and they can't stop themselves because they're addicted. And you've got the people that now, for some reason, like resolutely, stubbornly, as a point of pride, they're like, I'm never going to go to a tournament. Ah! And so what happens is the casual people start stepping away, or they go and form their own group, but they're kind of just playing with what they've got. They're not too bothered. They're not chasing the meta. They're buying what they like, and then they're building and painting it. And it's quite a low intense environment. They're not out there chasing the next unit. This is sort of comes back to like, why doesn't hobbying and stuff sustain the game? Because people that are actually buying loads and loads of stuff are buying it because they want to have good units. They want to buy it, build it, paint it, and then get it so they can start playing in their tournaments again. So they can start winning again. What happens is the casual players sort of go off and they form a little isolated bubble. And they start kind of engaging with 40k in a relatively low yield way. They're still buying stuff, still painting stuff. But as I said before, there's nothing like motivation for paying for a tournament. So if you don't have that motivation, if you don't get around to paint something, it doesn't matter. There's no painting standard when you're just playing with your friends. If you just use, maybe those casual players just play with grey models. Because they haven't got the motivation, because no one cares if they're using paints or unpainted, right? Because it's just friends playing together. So they go off, and now they're not really spending a huge amount of money on the hobby. They'll buy a paint here, they'll buy a box there, but that's kind of what they're doing. Go back to the competitive side. Those people are still going. They're going. They're buying, and they're chasing the meta, and they're trying to get as good as they can. And then something comes along that throws the game's balance completely out of whack. Or maybe they just get burned out. Maybe they've been on the treadmill for a while now, and they're just sick of chasing the meta. And so what happens is people that are actually spending a lot of money, people that are trying their best to always keep up with the churn, start disengaging. Because they realize that maybe they just have the one army. Maybe they just have like Space Marines. They want to do as well as they can with the Space Marines. But they realize that no matter how much effort they put in, there's no real point if they're trying to play to win and play events. And so then their attendance goes down, but they're actually the part that's spending a lot of money. So when they stop going to tournaments, they stop having that motivation to keep buying units, to keep building, keep painting. But then we get to the last part of the cycle, of the theory, of the arms race, which is those people that are now burned out from playing 40k competitively step back, and a number of things start happening. Maybe they decide to put their models on the shelves and just try video games for a little bit. Maybe they step away entirely. They just sell the models and like, you know what, I'm not really interested in playing 40k. It was fun while it lasted, but I'm going to recoup my losses and, you know, basically go somewhere else. And then what typically I tend to find happens is the competitive players, the ones that are getting burned out, some people will just stay in the ecosystem, and they're the ones that just play non-stop. No matter how bad it gets, they're in now. They're too far in, they're not coming out. But for the majority of people, the ones that are stepping back, that are burned out, they start reconnecting with that old game group a little bit more. Maybe they never stop being friends, they just stop playing together quite as much, you know, still chatting and everything. And they start reaching out and be like, hey man, do you fancy a game or something? And the friend that's more casual might be like, well, yeah, we could play like a game of 40k, man, but, you know, I'm not really feeling it. I don't really play 40k anymore. I do a little bit of modeling and painting, but I don't really play 40k anymore. And then one of the friends goes, well, why don't we try something a little bit different? I'm feeling a bit sick of 40k as well. Why don't we try another game? So maybe that's when they start buying a Bolt Action starter set together, or buying Star Wars Legion together. And they play that for a time. And they play that, I would say that's towards the end of the edition. I would say this cycle kind of takes place over the lifetime of one single edition of 40k, right? And what happens is the game group's good, everything's fine, people are playing, maybe they're just chatting, you know, but no one's playing 40k anymore, or they're only playing it occasionally. And if they are playing it, they're not buying anything because they're just using the models that they've got. Oh, we'll play a little bit about action this week. Brilliant. Oh, we'll play a bit of 40k, but you know what? I'll just bring stuff that I've already got. Do you know what I mean? And then the new edition of 40k comes out. 10th edition drops, 11th edition drops. And the whole game group goes, you know what? Well, we've already got a lot of 40k models, so why don't we play 40k again? New edition, right? It's going to be different. The GW says at Warhammer community, they balanced it a bit more. Oh, I don't need so many books anymore. Brilliant. And so what happens is people get back into 40k and it all starts again. The casual players start getting left behind again. The people that play competitively end up going to tournaments again. New people come in. And the same thing happens over and over again until eventually, I think, you do have those people which drop out of the cycle entirely. And it's this arms race which I believe explains why casual is led by competitive. and why 40k lives and dies on the tournament scene. But of course, all of this is just like my opinion, man. Let me know what you think down in the comment section below. Have you seen the arms race take place in your area? What do you believe causes 40k to be popular, and what causes it to start struggling a little bit? If you've enjoyed today's video, don't forget to smash that like button and subscribe to never miss an episode. Would you like to know more? If so, then please consider becoming a channel member or patron. By supporting the channel, not only will you be doing your part, but you'll also be helping me create more content for your viewing pleasure and unlocking a whole host of perks. You get everything from a badge next to your name, custom emojis, but the big one is access to the Mordian Glory Discord server, an online community with almost 2,500 active members. It's always popping off in the MG Discord. We've got channels for army lists, hobbying, tactics, stories, and even a pretty spicy meme section as well. For all you greenhorns that wanted to see the Mordian Glory Hole, today is your lucky day. And joking aside, I do want to say a massive thank you to all of the current channel members and patrons. You guys are amazing. Truly the lifeblood of the channel. I could not do Mordian Glory full-time without the incredible and generous support of my members. So thank you guys so much. And last but certainly not least, I want to say a personal thank you to all of my top tier Patreons. These are the War Masters, the people who have truly gone above and beyond the Call of Duty. So a massive thank you to Bon Bon Vert, Mad Larkin, Mark Panconi, RJ Scorpion, Swordfish Trombone, John Stubbs, Nick Walsh, Diesel Fox, August Vardy, and the Tommies. Thank you guys, your incredible support makes a huge difference, and it is a big part of how I'm able to do Mordian Glory full time. But that's all for now. Thank you for watching, and of course, as always, I'll see you guys next time.